James Dean Bradfield. Hello, James Dean Bradfield.
Hello, Mr. Mills. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I was watching you on telly last night.
What was I doing on TV?
There you go. You and your mate were there on TV. They re-showed, because everything you watch is a repeat now, because telly's run out of programs, of that brilliant Alan Yentob thing with Dame Shirley.
Yeah, it was the Shirley Bassey yes.
And I'd forgotten.
We wrote a song for it. Yeah.
That song you did was a brilliant song. I'll tell you what, watching it now in retrospect, because at the time I remember seeing it, this is brilliant. And now you watch it, I think when you're a bit more cynical, you think that's a brilliant song. Richard Hawley's was a brilliant song. But what Gary Barlow thought he was up to, he just...
One of his rare failures, I think. The Richard Hawley song was great because it had a touch of kind of pre-war Berlin about it, but also like that slight theatrical thing as well.
Exactly that. And what she did actually was she kind of looked at it and thought, because it was a little bit of nothing. It was a little, as he said, a sliver of a song. But she said, well, we'll see what we can do. And she made it a beautiful thing, like she did with yours. We want to go back to the source when we wrote a song about her, because Tiger Bay was such a legendary place. It's a very different place now. And we just want to write something about the source of where she came from, because obviously her journey has been so extraordinary. She's such a famous and moneyed person now, and we want to show the real kind of the start, the kind of where the magic started, kind of thing. Yeah, apparently it's all gone now. Tiger Bay, it's probably overpriced flats and stuff now, isn't it?
There's some of that, definitely, and it's more kind of centered around Cardiff Bay now. Yeah. But there's still stuff in Cardiff Bay which touches upon the earthier side of life, shall we say?
How did you describe it? I was brilliant. It was knives, fights, and French restaurants.
No, you can still have a good night out in kind of in what was formerly known as Tiger Bay. So. Not all the spit and sawdust has been washed away.
So where are you and what are you up to?
I'm in West Wales for the day, just enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the sea. I released my second solo album last week, and we got the chart position yesterday, and so I'm having a day of celebration by the sea now.
Well, West Wales by the sea, where's that, sort of Tenby that way?
Tenby. Yeah,
okay.
What you would call the start. They're kind of like, where everybody comes to the former Victorian town to kind of have their ice cream and let the sea lap up against their ankles.
So a nice bit of coast, and then you go up a little bit to Barmouth, and then when you get beyond that, up Anglesey, you're up that's where I spent my Rhyl and places like that. That's where I spent my childhood, up there. That's a lovely part of the world. That is north.
It's a very varied coastline, because the atmosphere, the accent, everything changes within a heartbeat along this coastline. So it's just really interesting and amazing. It's a lovely birthright to have, definitely.
It is a lovely place, and you're absolutely right. And there is nowhere, I imagine, in the world where an accent can change. It's basically, yes, you recognise that you're from your accent that you're Welsh, but it changes to such an extent from that really guttural, So to a rather sweet, kind of nice, jolly.
We have the slight high-rising terminal. But Britain's like that as well, isn't it? It's amazing. I don't think there's, we can talk about Wales and then we can extend it to Britain. I don't think there's a country like Britain in the world where the accents can just change just like that. From if you just go from Lancashire to Yorkshire, bam, it just changes too. It's amazing.
Well, what always fascinates me is when you say to someone, "Sorry, are you a Geordie?" and they say, "What are you talking about, a Geordie? I'm so obviously from Middlesbrough." And you think, well, mate.
I think I've tuned into all those differences now, because I have been touring like Britain since I was we first probably started touring in the Manics from 1990 onwards. Wow. So I think I've tuned into all those little variants now. I think
it is is it 1990? Oh my God, of course.
Yeah, I'm old, Bob. I'm old.
No, don't be silly. You're as old as your last song, mate. That's what they say.
I'm not sure.
So tell us about the new album then. Let's do it. Let's plug it.
Well, kind of, the Manics had taken kind of a 3-year break,
And I think subconsciously I was looking for something to do, because I am an institutionalized musician. Once I haven't got an album to finish, if you can call them that anymore, then I get a bit panic stricken. So we were in this period where I knew a new Manics record wasn't going to come out for 3 years. And one of my friends was doing lots of writing about somebody called Victor Jara, who was a kind of a folk singer, a protest singer, a political activist from Chile, that was really came to prominence in the mid 60s to the early 70s. And he was an activist and folk singer, and he supported the Allende government in Chile, and he was murdered in the overthrow of the Allende government by the Pinochet coup. It's an album about him, really. It's an album about his music as much as anything, because a lot of people focus on Victor Jara as a personality, kind of as a left-wing martyr. But I focused on the expression in his music and the way he expressed his humanity through music. So yeah, it's kind of a concept album about a folk singer from Chile, kind of like from that era, from the mid 60s to the early 70s.
That part of the world is so rich in that history of that sort of, because wasn't Che Guevara Chilean? He was not Cuban. I think he was from there, if I'm not mistaken. He's certainly from one of those countries.
And done me there.
When you go all the way back to, even if you read like the just about Simon Bolivar and the Liberatore days and all that, it's such a rich culture of not of revolution in the kind of blowing things up scale, but of cultural revolution and poetic revolution almost.
Yeah, I mean, and also political polarization, where it can swing between extreme right and extreme left, and Chile did have the first democratically elected Marxist government with the Allende presidency. But it does veer between left and right quite violently. The center ground is something which is hard to occupy in Chilean politics. But you're right, there is a poeticism to, especially what you would call the broadly left side of politics in Chile, where it gets slightly surreal in its poetry sometimes, and a lot of it comes through Catholic. A lot of the Catholic Church. You get a lot of tradition of politics coming through the salvation of the church, etc. It's a very, very rich body of political thought, which is very different to any kind of European political thought, definitely.
And it's also, when you look at the size of the continent and the size of the countries, because they're all great big massive blobs of countries, and then you think, well, it was formerly either Spain or Portugal, and then it was independent, but very, very quickly it's everything it does reflects on the United States, and everything it does in some way the United States wants to alter from one side to the other, always from the left to the right.
Yeah, there is that kind of look, this is an outsider's European's point of view, but the view you always get of Chilean politics, to a certain degree Argentinian politics, is that the left doesn't want to be an outpost of American soft power. They don't want to see all the kind of token American symbols of consumerism on their high street. But then you get the broadly right wing of Chile kind of inviting people from America and Europe to invest in their copper mines and to really make it a cultural outpost of America. And that's why the middle ground is so hard to occupy in Chilean politics, it seems, because there is a constant tug of war. And I suppose that's why sometimes we make sense of things in European politics, because when people appeal for the middle ground in European politics, that's where people kind of tend to gather, and when things make sense. In Chilean politics, it seems it's hard to do that.
So what have you done? Have you taken the lyrics of Victor Jara, or have you just...
No, I had a friend that was writing about him. Okay. I have a friend who lives in the Valley. Well, he's Nicky, his brother from the band, okay. Patrick Jones. And he's a playwright and a poet. He's published and performed in his own right. And he was just writing about Victor Jara. He was writing poetry, prose. He was writing a one-man play about him. And he was writing about Victor Jara as an emotional exercise, because he had lost his mother and his father was then very ill. And it's when I realized, musicians write little bits of music just for themselves. I think novelists just write prose for themselves, just as an exercise. And that's what Patrick was doing. He was just writing lots of stuff about Victor Jara as an emotional exercise. And I stole it because I thought, if you're not going to publish this, I know about this man. I know about his life through other musicians writing about him, and I've got free time, and I really connected to it. So yeah, that was it. It was an opportunity that just landed in my lap through a friend.
Okay, so the album is called Even in Exile. What do people do now? Do they download it now?
Yes, they can download it. They can go and buy it in a record shop. Shock horror. They can buy a physical copy of it, or they can download it. It was out last.
Okay, and this is The Boy from the Plantation from it, and we'll go out, as I love to finish the show, listening to this. So, James, Dean, thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you. Keep well, keep safe. And we'll finish with this piece of music. When we come back next week, we'll be in